We know who's going to be in the World Series. We'll discuss that. We are going to get into the media sessions and what came out when Chris Antonetti sat down and talked. On top of that, we have some quotes and some other fun things to talk about on today's episode of
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Guardians. I am your host, Jeff Ellis. I want to take a moment and say today's episode of Locked On Guardians is sponsored by Simply Safe Home Security with Fast Protect trademark technology exclusively from Simply Safe. 24/7 monitoring agents capture evidence to accurately verify a threat for faster police response. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Visit simplysafe.com/LockedOnMLB to learn more. I also want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. And then to tell you who I am, I've been the host of Locked On Guardians since the inception. Before that, I was a lead draft and prospect analyst at Scout and 24/7. And before that, I got my start I was the first person that Tony Lastoria brought on to what was, I don't even know if we had an official name of Indians Prospect Insider. I can't remember what we were called exactly at that time. But I remember the debate, and I thought Indians Prospect Insider was too long, and prospect was a tricky word to spell, and I was against it. So just kind of some fun backstory if you enjoy that site. I was very wrong. Now, of course, well, I'm not going to speak for Justin. Justin, how do they know you?
Well, I've been around every Cleveland sports blog. I'm Justin Lada. I've been on Burning River Baseball, ESPN Sweet Spot. It's pronounced Lajoie. Fan-sided, all that kind of stuff, and I'm a freelancer for the News Herald and the Morning Journal up here in Cleveland, and I am the editor-in-chief of Guardians Baseball Insider, which was formerly Indians Baseball Insider, which was formerly Indians Prospect Insider.
Yeah, it's a long, strange trip. It was like 2007 when I joined there, so I've been kind of officially somewhere for now 15 years because it was not long after that team got eliminated from the postseason that started for me. So yeah, it's probably been I discovered the site about then, so maybe I didn't start working until the summer, but I'm approaching 15 years in this industry, so that's kind of fun. Speaking of fun, the World Series may not be fun for everyone, but I think it's kind of fascinating in two regards. One, the Astros are the only favorite team that kept winning, and boy, did they trounce the Yankees. We saw all of their weaknesses that showed up in that Cleveland series, and all of their offensive issues came to the forefront. The Phillies, the team that was third in their own division.
The last team to make it in.
Yeah, they were the underdog the whole way. They're an interesting team from two perspectives. One, it's that whole idea of you just got to make it, and who knows what's going to happen. I don't think anyone picked the Phillies at any point in time to win this thing. No one expected them to get this far. And, it is interesting from the other perspective that when you get down to it, these are two teams that aren't afraid to spend. The Astros have kept their own guys. They've lost some, but they've also been able to spend to keep their talent in place. And you can go and look at this Phillies team. When they added Castellanos, who I know didn't have a great year, they added Schwarber. They always go out and add. And it's going to be, in some regards, it'll be fascinating. They went out and traded arguably their top prospect to go get Brandon Marsh to fix their center field issue. It's going to be, I'm just going to put it on the back burner for later this offseason. But there was talk at points in time that the Phillies were interested in Zach Plesac. Just could be something that, I'm saying could get still revisited, as this Phillies team will still have some needs and wants. But if you're a Phillies fan, this is probably extremely unexpected and fun, but it also shows if things break right, Cleveland could have been here. Anyone can be there. It just matters if you make it.
Yeah, I mean, certainly there are some things that Cleveland is missing, I think, that have been highlighted throughout the postseason through the Cleveland and Yankee series and even now, which we'll get into later in the podcast, that I'll bring up some stats and some good tweets about that. But yeah, you just got to get in. And I think the Phillies are an interesting approach. It's almost like I don't want to say it's stars and scrubs because that's kind of demeaning to the players that are really good, but it is kind of a start. Like they had enough frontline talent. They had, Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola. They have Schwarber and Harper and Rhys Hoskins has really discovered himself again in the postseason. Like they've got enough like frontline talent, so you really just got to have a handful of big guys, and they have to come through in the postseason. And Cleveland's still kind of working towards that. You know, you've got Bieber and you've got McKenzie and you've got Jose and you've got Gimenez. You know, Jose at the injury and Gimenez. We'll touch on that in a minute. You've got Clase, so you've got your stars right there, I think, and you've got some more that you're hoping to build around here in the future. So the foundations are set to be kind of like the Phillies, but the Phillies got to remember a lot of those guys are free agent and trade pieces, right? That's not a very homegrown team, so no. It's a different approach. Of course, it's a Dave Dombrowski led team, so of course it's not a prospect team because he does not ever keep his own prospects.
You know, it's just interesting to go just beyond that too, because of like they had so many high draft picks, and they did one of the worst jobs I've ever seen in terms of scouting and develop. I mean, the last 10 years were a clinic in how to not draft. So
actually, Andrew Painter, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes, and you know, especially in that first round. But it was just there were a lot of points where I was like, "Ooh, I don't love that," and you know, I'll be curious to see what they do. You know, I know a lot of Cleveland, but you know, just to further hit on this point, like Ragnar Suarez being their third pitcher, I believe he was from, you know, he's an internal guy, but he's 27. He has bounced up and down, and it's not been even.
He was a reliever last year.
Yeah. Most people didn't even know who Bailey Falter was until yesterday, I'm betting, when he got knocked out of the game. And then you look, I mean, the bullpen is like, they're the anti-Guardians. This is not a good pen, really. It's you know, they put Thor in there after they acquired him because Bailey Falter was a better option to start. A lot of kind of
Robertson and old friend Brad Hand.
Yeah, it's just it's fascinating from that perspective that this is a team that is kind of in some respects the anti-Guardians. But yeah, I mean, they could potentially use a starter and a reliever this offseason. And that's why I'm kind of curious to see, you know, I've had multiple people ask me about Rhys Hoskins. I have a hard time thinking that they're going to trade him. I just can't see that occurring. Maybe, you know, they'll talk Alec Bohm this offseason, but it was not a good year for him. And it hasn't been a good year since the 2020 season, which you can't take any data out of. So yeah, I mean, this Phillies team, like the other reason they remind me of Cleveland, it's like they have a lot of gaping holes. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of places that they could use improvement, and you know, the right guys hit at the right time. It's just, like I said, it's going to be fascinating because it's not a deep minors. They have not developed well. They have some massive holes. I still think they are the team most likely to have a rough year next year. Like looking at all these postseason teams, they're the one that has the ugliest path back in my mind. Am I crazy?
Oh, it's always hard to get back, but yeah, for sure. I mean, they've got it. Their lineup is still really good. If Rhys Hoskins carries this over to next year, we're getting into lockdown Phillies territory here. But if they care, I mean, the lineup's hitting. They have a good lineup. There's no doubt about that. They're just, you know, they're not a super young team either. So
no.
We'll see. Speaking of Zach Plesac, we didn't plan this moment when we could dig into this into a future episode, but we've touched on the rule changes for next year with, you know, pickoffs and controlling the running game. Zach Plesac is one of the guys we know who is very good at holding runners on. Is there some intrinsic value to be had in Zach Plesac in any role? Because he is one of the guys who is great at holding runners on, and we know it's going to be harder next year. So, like, is there like you can't I don't know if you can quantify it or not. Maybe someone's quantified it, but does he have some sort of hidden value in his ability to control the run game that other pitchers may not next year with the new rules that we're not thinking about?
And potentially. I mean, he's still Zach Plesac, so it's excuse me. I think what's going to be interesting just in general is like this pitch count, like how much that is going to throw off every pitcher's mechanics and how much that's also going to be like quick to the plate. Man, I haven't coughed for the last hour.
You only have 2 attempts to throw over, so
yeah.
There's no more of this, you know, don't show the guy your best move on the first try. It's okay, throw over once, and your second move has to be your best move. And if you do it a third time and you don't get him out, the guy gets the next base. until the next batter comes up. So
yeah,
I don't know. And maybe if there's just some like small intrinsic value that comes from having pitchers that have good pickoff moves, and he's one of them.
no, I mean it's potentially there. I just wonder how much it's it's like a bonus feature, and I don't know if it's enough to drive value outside of it's a nice bonus feature. But
well, I don't think we're going to know about that until after next year. I don't think we're gonna see the true effect of it until we're a year into these rule changes. So that's why I'm just kind of wondering how they'll approach things with him, because of this rule change and because of what he can do. I mean, if it turns out that is some sort of value, they would not get that. They would not extract that value from him trade wise this offseason. It would be next offseason.
No, that's for sure. It's going to be interesting to watch. It's almost going to be like a different game next year in some regards. Like it's honestly going to be something with all the rule changes that are occurring at once. It's going to be a little bit chaos, I feel like, at the start.
For sure.
We're going to take our first break here. We're going to come back, and we have, we mentioned the end of the year media session where some interesting things came out. We know Tito's staying. We'll get into that. We'll talk about additional injury information. We got some fun quotes in segment 3, and then we're going to also, in segment 3, reach out to the fans to help us with future content on the show. So make sure to tune in and check that out. But first, let's talk about our good friends over at Simply Safe. Simply Safe is one of our newest sponsors, and it's all in the name. Simply Safe. They want to keep your home safe, and they want to make it as simply done as possible. As everyone knows, athletes rise and fall in rankings when it comes to saving money. Simply Safe stays on top. And right now, you can save big with Simply Safe Home Security. They're giving listeners 40% off their advanced security system. Simply Safe was just named the best home security of 2022 by U.S. News. I use U.S. News all the time. That's how I decide what car I was buying. If U.S. News says it, then I believe it. So remember to check out Simply Safe, which was the /1 home security by U.S. News, one of the best places you can go for information on things. Your safety is the only thing that matters to them. So they have 24/7 professional monitoring. When a threat is detected, Simply Safe's monitoring professionals promptly contact you and dispatch first responders to your home. Even if you're away or asleep, they're watching you. They're like Santa Claus. They know when you've been naughty or nice, and they know when something naughty or nice is happening to your home, and they will send them to your house. Don't miss this chance to save big when you protect your home with the best. Get 40% off your order when you visit SimplySafe/LockedOnMLB today. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes. That's simplysafe.com/LockedOnMLB. I'm going to do this again. Sorry, badly written copy. That's simplysafe.com/LockedOnMLB today. Go today. There's no safe like Simply Safe. And when I say something about copy, that is nothing against a company. That's against probably something in network. I'm just going to get myself in trouble. But yeah, if U.S. News says it, I believe it. Simply Safe is the best. Go check them out and save 40%. Okay. So we are in the second half. The media end of the year thing, not a whole lot came of it. I don't think there was a ton of great takeaway quotes, but let's be honest, front and center, Tito's back is probably the big thing. One, are you surprised at all? I mean, this is probably his healthiest season in years, so I wasn't terribly surprised. And two, how many years can he realistically manage at this point?
Yeah, no surprise that he's back by any means. I mean, they touched on it earlier in the year that he was going to be back and he was going to make it to the end of the season. It was just a matter of sitting down and kind of hammering out the details. And he's going to go year to year at this point. It's not going to be a multi-year thing, so it's just going to be a year-to-year contract depending on his health. Hard to say. I mean, he got through this whole season. I guess we'll know next season. I guess it's kind of like a player for the first time pitching in the playoffs or the first time playing 162 games. This is the first time that Tito has managed all season since 2019, right? So we'll see how he responds to the full season of rigors again next year and how he comes back in 2023 off of that. I don't know.
Yeah, he's 63.
Yeah.
He'll turn 64 in April. It's like baseball managing and politicians are the one thing where we don't retirement ages don't seem to come to be.
They're made up.
Yeah, he is loved. He does a great job. Here's the thing with Tito. I think he does all the things well that are very hard to quantify.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he is not a fan of the new school. He is totally locked into, about 10 years ago in terms of some of the lineup stuff and pitching things. But the way he managed the team is, you can't second guess the guy. I think it just comes down to health. Like if he has another year like 2020 or 2021 next year, that might signal the end. But if he's healthy, it feels like he's just going to keep going. So,
right.
Yeah.
I think some of that's tough to say, too, about past stuff, because there's just so much that's going on in that clubhouse that we don't ever know about, that no one's ever going to know about, whether it's hard for even the media to get information on. So I think when you say like, oh, he does stuff a certain way and it's looks like he's not paying attention to data or what's going on in 2022. But I think one of the things you can't quantify the factors into that is knowing his own players. I think there was a good story, one of the few good Bob Costa stories, because let's be honest, there were a lot of bad ones during the postseason when he was broadcasting. But one of the things he brought up was there was a player who came to him and told him, hey, about his usage in the postseason, and the guy told him, go ahead and use me as much as you need to. Don't ruin the arms of any of these young guys who don't have a contract. I have a contract I'm taking care of. And there was a story the other day about Josh Beckett, and he pitching him in the postseason in 2007 on 3 days rest, and kind of reading that, Beckett would do it, but he didn't think he'd be as good without saying he wouldn't be as good. So I think one of the things that you can hear from Tito and how they make decisions, just how he talks about his players, is he knows his players pretty well, and he does a good job making sure he knows what's going on with them and when they're lying to him and when they're not lying to him. Because let's be honest, players are going to lie to you a lot. It's a lot of that is just them saying, yeah, I feel good, I can play, or yeah, I'm available. There's a big difference between those two things, and I think he's done a good job of figuring those things out. So when you talk about like he's stuck in doing certain things certain ways, but I wonder how much of that comes from just kind of knowing his players and kind of having to stick to a certain set of decisions because he knows, what guys can and can't do and when they're not available and that sort of thing.
I mean, it definitely could be. I also think like Owen Miller showed us this year with his use that there is a degree of both. I think it's fair to think there's a degree of both going on.
Yeah.
I think he knows his players, and that might explain why someone like Ahmed hits 2, even though that may not be ideal. Like there might be something he knows there that makes sense. But on the other side of it, like I said, hitting Owen Miller against lefties when we know it's just he can't do it is
working.
The other side. So I'm betting it's both, honestly. And like I said, it's he does his job well. He's a good manager. Like there's things to second guess, but I'm not losing my mind over that. Gimenez is broken thumb, so that might explain some of his postseason scuffles. Apparently, this team needs to like put all thumbs in plexiglass. So my initial thought was, I mean, listen, I saw the tweets. Everyone talked about how many times he got hit, but I'm like, if his thumb is already a risky thing, can we please talk to him this offseason about not sliding into head first into first base all the time? It might explain why in the postseason he finally went why he went feet first instead of head first, if that thumb was bothering him because of that. But an interesting, we all knew Jose was hurt. We all thought he had gotten better. So that was interesting to be like, oh no, he was just hurt all year and never got any better. And that explained a lot of things going on with him. What did you think about the, Gimenez situation?
Well, I think first of all, Jeff, if the Guardians go like 81 next year, but Andres Gimenez doesn't slide into first base once next year, I think you'll consider it a successful season. Like I think you'll be the most happy of it out of anybody. That okay, they didn't go back to the playoffs, but Andres Gimenez didn't slide into first base, so I'm calling this season a win. No, but seriously, he definitely does need to stop that. He definitely did get hit a lot. I kind of wonder. I see some of these players, not all of them, have like the little grip.
Love. Oh.
Yeah, there's different things. Like some guys have this like little rubber thing that goes on their fingers. Some of them use that big old pad. I wonder if maybe like he needs some additional equipment on his hand. Like, I know some people are like, oh, it's ridiculous how much they wear up there, but I don't care. I don't want my best players getting hurt. I want to see the best players playing all the time. I want to see the best players playing against the best players. So if this guy's got to wear a pad on his thumb to hit and it doesn't affect him, and I don't care, just do it. Stay on the, whatever it takes to play at your best level. If that, it's not cheating. So, put the grip on the thumb or whatever it is, make it stabilized and keep it protected, because obviously Gimenez gets hurt a lot with his stance. So, or gets hit by a pitch a lot. So do whatever you got to do. Find something that goes on your hand to fix it. And
their two best hitters were hurt for the postseason, which is less than ideal.
Jose's
in your lineup.
Yeah, and Jose's had a history of those like hand and wrist issues too. And again, it's another byproduct of his stance too. He gets a lot of balls up and in because he's out over the plate and he wants to be ready to yank the ball down the right field line.
We're going to take a break. We're going to come back in segment 3. We have some internal stuff to get into, as well as some fun quotes. Make sure you're tuned in. You're going to hear some hot takes on what was the biggest story in Locked On Friday in a moment on Locked On Guardians. Okay, so if you missed it, the Locked On Warriors, we have to address what happened because Locked On got the most attention we have ever gotten as a network, all for the negative. The humorous aspect about it to me was, I didn't get pissed. I think pissed is okay to say. I think that's, I didn't get mad as much as annoyed, because the general take, and I understand to a degree where they're coming from, this idea of like, listen, don't take rumors from bad sources, or, it's more the idea of like, no, because there was like talk of I think a Klay Thompson retirement, and it came from maybe an untrusted source. I didn't dig deep enough, if I'm being honest. And yes, I occasionally get annoyed on this show when I see, like I talked about last year, when MLB trade rumors didn't really source it. They just assumed that the Guardians would somehow have $100 million payroll. And I'm like, that's bad data. Going on a diatribe against, fans talking on mics about teams when you worked at Locked On is ironic, because that's 80% of our podcasts. Most people aren't credentialed in network. Most of us are, we do work in media, and most of us have worked in varying levels of media, but it became a huge story, the biggest one I've ever seen featuring Locked On, and we felt like we had to address it.
Yeah, super unfortunate. I'm glad you gave some context too, because I got to be honest, when I first saw the clip going on social media, which often happens this way.
Yes.
I didn't know the context behind the conversation. Yeah, for sure. We see this in Cleveland all the time too, even with rumors getting out there that without any substance. Like, there's nobody. I always say this to people who are baseball fans in Cleveland. There are 2 or 3 people that I have notifications turned on from, and I'll say in Cleveland specifically, well, nationally, Jeff Passan, obviously. Mm-hmm. I get his notifications on Twitter. Zach Meisel of The Athletic, I get his notifications because when he tweets something, it's obviously important. Manny Bell, who covers the Guardians for MLB.com, like, if you don't see things from them, and there are others too, and I'm just saying these are the ones that I generally pay the most attention to in Cleveland. But we've seen some of the issues in Cleveland where people are tweeting things that are maybe not supposed to be out there or aren't accurate. But punching up and punching down at people is so ridiculous. Yeah. Look, we want you to listen to Locked On Guardians. We Jeff and I enjoy talking about the Guardians. We've done so together. We've done so separately. We've done so as friends on social media as well. But there's a lot of good podcasts out there. There's a lot of other good content creators in Cleveland that you can pay attention to. Podcasts, written stuff. Some of them are fans. Some of them are media. Some of them are a little bit in between. If whatever you enjoy, if these people who make podcasts enjoy making it, listen to it. Or if you enjoy what they have to say, they don't necessarily have to have insider access to have a unique opinion or to have good ideas. Neither one of us is at Guardians games in person in the press box right now. Doesn't mean we don't have a clue what's going on. So, there you go. We've both been in media for 20 something years now, or a little under 20 years, 15 years, I should say, for me. Doesn't mean we're always right. Doesn't mean we always have the best opinions, but we do pay attention and we do try to give you good information. So We don't try to make ourselves be better than anybody else. We just try to make ourselves worth listening to. And anybody can do that. You just got to make yourself worth listening to. Don't listen to what everybody else says.
And I've always tried to make it my thing. Like, I've seen this business at points be extremely cutthroat. I have had there are people who have been very rude to me in the past or have gone out of their way to be jerks, but I don't like air that out. Instead, I always try to raise people. And there are a few people out there who like have 10 times the Twitter followers of me, where I can proudly say that, like, hey, before they had 1,000 followers, I was there and saying, hey, go check this person out. And I've always believed this is a way to help raise up others to greater things. And that I agree, like punching down and the whole thing with the Warriors, and then to like keep like doubling and tripling down, and then to be like, yo, yeah, I'm not credentialed either. But then to make a statement about,
yeah,
it's like it was a mess. And there were a lot of angry people, and we saw the response. And I get it, because if you're pouring your heart and your soul into your thing, like, why is this person who's probably likely never listened to it, like, crapping on you? And that is not our take. We don't support it. We don't back it. And we just thought it was important to take a moment and be like, yeah, that was it was a dark day for, I think, the Locked On Network, because that is, again, the biggest story I've ever seen. And I've been here since MLB began. I've been doing this for 3.5 years. So we had to address it because, yeah, it went viral. It's the first time we as a network have gone viral as far as I've known. And as is likely with viral, it was a negative. Now that we've kind of focused on the negative, let's go to those quotes. I'm hoping they'll have some positivity in them or some fun stuff to discuss.
Well, I could start with the good one. Do you want me to start with? Okay, one's not a bad one, but it's more of a face of reality. Okay, let's start with the good. Actually, my fiance sent this to me from Facebook. She said that she saw this. And this applied. It was a Guardians fan who posted this, but it was I think it applies to all sports in general. Sports that should remind us that life is a series of moments, good and bad, and we should enjoy the ones that give us joy and satisfaction and be grateful for those. Only one team can win each year, and if winning it all is your only definition of success and happiness, then chances are you'll be a miserable fan. And if you live your life that way, you'll be a miserable person. So enjoy the moments in the journey without caring about the destination. Enjoy the process first, the final result second. Because I hate to break it to you, in the end, we all lose, even the Yankees, as they're down 4-3 as we're recording this on Sunday night. That's always been kind of one of my takes, is that, if your only way that you can enjoy a sports season is a championship and everything else is a failure, you're going to be unhappy a lot of years. I used to joke that, if you're a fan of Tom Brady, then, you're going to be happy most years because the guy was winning every Super Bowl. But if you're not a fan of Tom Brady, then he's not winning Super Bowls anymore. It doesn't look like he's playing terrible, or the Bucks are playing terrible. But if your only way of happiness watching sports is a championship, you're going to be disappointed a lot of years, man. Like, look, we saw with the Phillies in the first segment. I don't think a lot of Phillies fans, when they fired Joe Girardi, thought they're going to be winning a championship this year, and they're now getting to enjoy a great season and a great, going to the World Series. And if they lose, that's tough. That's unfortunate. Doesn't mean that it hasn't been a great journey since that firing of Joe Girardi. Not that it's all his fault, but you know what I mean? Like, baseball especially is the longest running sport, like March, February, even to September, like in October. If you don't enjoy it, and I don't want to tell any fan how to feel, because this is how I feel. And if you feel differently, then, that's fine. But I just think that mentally, that's not to say you can't be disappointed when a team loses. It's hard to go to the playoffs. It's hard to get to the World Series. Because again, like the Phillies, if you can do all these things and get there, and there's no guarantee you'll get back next year. So with Cleveland, I feel that way too. I feel like Cleveland next year has a great chance to get back, but at the same time, it's hard to climb that mountain again, no matter who is on your team. The Astros and even the Indians of the 90s are a better example of those things. But just enjoy the journey. Enjoy what brings us together in sports. Like, enjoy being nervous every pitch in the postseason. If it doesn't work out your way, that sucks. And it's definitely okay to be disappointed. But, like I said, if your entire goal of watching sports is to see your team win a championship, you're not going to reach your goal most years, and you're going to be pretty upset.
So I just want to point out the Philly thing could be bad for us all, because the last times that Philadelphia has won a World Series was 1929, 1980, and 2008. So there's been a financial collapse after every Phillies World Series. Just to have a fun little bow on the Phillies, talking about the fun of this year.
Whew, wow.
Yeah,
well, my
just kind of a fun thing. Hopefully none of that is true, but I think I saw somewhere else where it's like essentially teams average something like 3 championships per 100 years, and that just might be because most leagues are like 30 odd plus teams. But yeah, if guess what, most of us won't live to 100, so that means if you're lucky you get 1 to 2, and if you're not in it, you are the most curmudgeonly person possible if you can't enjoy any other part of it, because that means you're spending like 70 years maybe as a sports fan and having 2 years that were enjoyable. I can't imagine that. So yeah, that was kind of my button on your first quote.
Yeah, and even just to like the Cavs stuff, like I remember years with the Cavs, and you should also listen to Locked On Cavs, our good friend Chris Manning over there, after you're done listening to us. But like, remember the LeBron years when he was in Cleveland, especially the second time, like they won in 2016, and it was like the regular season just kind of became meaningless, and you're just waiting to get to. And even the Indians did this in 18 and 17 and 18, right? Except for the 22 game winning streak, like 2018, we were just waiting till October, and the regular season was like almost miserable except for that winning streak. And it's like you didn't get to enjoy it. And that's why my next quote was, expectations are the thief of joy. They really are. Next year for Cleveland, this year there were no expectations. There were, you hoped. None of us saw Steven Kwan doing what he did. We were all thrilled he made the opening day roster. Nobody saw Andres Gimenez becoming an all-star. Tristan McKenzie, I think there were some signs you could say he was going to take a leap, and you had Jose and Clase, who you felt pretty good about. But I mean, no one really saw this coming. And it was exciting. The Cavs last year, it's the same way. They had a young, weirdly shaped roster of players, and they played them just right, and Cleveland played them just right, and it worked out for them this year. But next year there's going to be expectations, and those things change things, and it makes things less enjoyable if you let it. So that first quote and the second quote kind of tie in together. Still want to enjoy next year, and hopefully there are going to be setbacks. There are going to be some regressions. Hopefully they can do what they can over the offseason to offset that and prepare for that, because that does happen. They know it happens. But yeah, expectations are the thief of joy, and for Cleveland next year there will be expectations, and we have to prepare for those, hopefully, and not let it get into our head, and try to enjoy 2023 as much as we enjoyed 2022.
Yeah, there's always kind of a bonus fun when it's like out of nowhere, right? Like that's what these 2016
was that way.
Yeah, these two fun young Cleveland teams have basketball, and yeah, hey, maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe the Guardians will make a Donovan Mitchell-esque move this offseason.
That's what we've been hoping for,
and that could be something. Speaking of that, I know we have a tweet that you want to talk about. Justin and I want to do a thing. So you can hit us up on Locked On Guardians. You can hit us up on
YouTube,
the YouTube, the Twitter, anywhere. In terms of the players you would like to see the Guardians acquire, if it is a free agent, just say I would like to see them get this player in free agency. If it's DeGrom or Judge, we're probably going to ignore it. But hey, if it is a trade, send us your trade ideas, and then we'll have a show where, like, let's say it is the Christian Walker one, because we know that his name's going to come up, or the Sean Murphy one, and we are going to evaluate, say, who would say yes or no to the trade offers, and get into, like which one is maybe closest to it, what makes sense. So we will give credit to you, unless you do not want us to state your name, but it could be a fun thing to do. So you can hit us up on all the various social media aspects and sites with your trade ideas and or free agents you would like to see them.
Any player. I mean, yeah, like Jeff said, DeGrom or Judge will probably be going to ignore, but anybody else besides that, feel free to let us know why you're interested, and give us, even if it's maybe a contract, even if it's a free agent, tell us what contract you think is fair, or you think they're going to accept. And trades for sure. Give us that. We'll definitely give you a thumbs up or thumbs down, and we'll debate why and why not. We'll try to get into that as deep as we can during the off season. Here's one more, and this speaks to the same segments we're going to do on trades. So Mike Petriello of MLB.com had a great tweet to start the ALCS between the Yankees and Astros. And he said, are the Astros just the Guardians offense with power? So as we know, Cleveland during the regular season, lowest strikeout rate, highest contact rate in baseball. Well, Houston had the second lowest strikeout rate and the second highest contact rate in baseball all season. But guess what, Jeff? The Astros hit 80 more home runs than Cleveland. So the Astros did essentially do the same thing Cleveland did all season. They just hit 80 more home runs. And it makes me think, and we should get into this in a future episode as well, and we'll address these through the trades possibly, but I don't think Cleveland's going to come up with 80 home runs from now to next year. I just don't think it's going to happen. So how many home runs does Cleveland need to add? I'm not saying they have to be the Astros. I'm saying they have to just add power to what they already have. So how many home runs does Cleveland need to add? And obviously they matter when in the postseason. But anyway, how many do they have to add? And how many can they add? And how do they add them? Is my question. We can either, we don't have a lot of time to talk about today, but we can.
No. I'll say like 35 to 40, just that Franmil gap. Like that's the realistic addition. And then maybe you say like 45 with some internal growth from young players. Like we know Oscar Gonzalez can hit
more,
the heck out of the ball, but he didn't have, the in-game power this year. Maybe he can add, 5 to 10 more. And then you're looking at, so then all of a sudden it's like getting that 130 home run threat through a trade maybe, or free agency. And then from there, can Oscar step up more? Can, if you replace Owen Miller with someone like Arias at first base, who has a better power potential, it's like, can that lead to 5 more? It's like, how can we build
healthy
it?
Jose all season? He struggled at the end of the year. He had 29 or he had 30, I think. And
no, 29. We didn't have 30.
29. And he's at 35 in the past. So can he get back to 35? Can you get 5 more from Andres Gimenez? Like those little things. Can Quan grow into 5 more home runs? Like there's a way to add for sure. My guess is, and then we can get into this again another episode, but my thinking is they have to find a way to add 40 home runs next year. I think 40, the Astros hit 80. I think Cleveland would do well to add 40, whether it's external, a mix of external and internal, I would say, and go from there.
No, and I think it's basically Franmil Reyes.
Adding any more than 40 is, adding more than 40, I think would just be really hard and unrealistic.
And, and that's just the thing, like for as much as we kind of warn about regression, and it is likely, what we're kind of seeing too at the same time is like, well, Jose played the whole year hurt. There was an injury, Gimenez was playing hurt. And I think one of those really underrated aspects in terms of what could help avoid regression is like, losing Reyes was like a massive injury in of itself for a 20-year-old to fall apart like he did. So I think essentially a lot of it is just finding what Franmil was supposed to be in this lineup, which is not cheap or easy to find.
Yep, that's why I said they missed. And people mistook my tweet all year. I said this multiple times. Cleveland missed Franmil Reyes so much. Like, no, they didn't. He was terrible this year. No, they didn't miss what he did this year. They missed the guy that hit 30 home runs in 2021, despite the fact that he missed a month. They needed that guy to work out like they thought he was going to.
Yeah, right-handed bat with power who would be like a 110 to 120 runs created plus. Like that was, yes, you are dead on with that.
Yep. So we can get into more of that in another show as well and talk about ways they can add that. And that'll probably go along with the trade proposals we hope to get from everybody as we jump into those in the off season.
Yeah. So just go ahead and start sending those in.
Wherever.
Yep. Yeah. That we'll handle. I've been getting some Facebook ones. People have been hitting me up on my writer page on Facebook, and that works as well in the Facebook Messenger. And I want to thank Pete and Kelly who went the extra mile to go contact me and talk about how much they love the show. I do appreciate hearing from people in every format. It's always nice to hear I've got a LinkedIn comment the other day from someone who loved the show. So I am seeing them. If I don't always have the time to respond, I'm seeing them. I'm appreciating them. And this is a thank you. We are at 784 YouTube subscribers. So let's keep that push alive and going. That's what, 226. Oh, no, 216. So if you and 216 of your closest friends could subscribe, we would very much appreciate that. And do you have anything else to add before I do our final close?
No, I don't know.
Okay, so with that said, go Guardians, go.